Welcome back to the Creator Partnerships podcast, where we talk with the best of the best on the topic of bringing creators into the DNA of your organization. Today we have Andrei from AdoreMe. Andrei is the humble head of software, backed by an epic team over there. They were recently acquired by Victoria's Secret for $400 million. The lingerie brand, and I quote, was described by Martin Waters, the CEO of Victoria's Secret, as a technology-led digital-first innovator. And today, we're going to learn how you can apply internal technical resources to your creator partnerships to unlock huge upside and smooth over a lot of the problems and pains you might be facing as you scale up from 10, 20, 30, 50, 60, 70 influencers to hundreds, or where AdoreMe is today at 6,000 influencers in their community. Their peak activation was 2,000 creators publishing in a single month. So very impressive numbers over there. Obviously, incredibly successful company at 250 million. Thank you, Andrei, for coming to the show. And I hope you find this very useful, dear listener. Let's jump in with Andrei. Thanks again for being here. And I think maybe we can start with just breaking down what role creators play at AdoreMe. What's the actual function of content creators over there?
I think in the first place, it's about content. And it all goes to the marketing funnel, I think. When we're thinking about, hey, we have a brand, we have the marketing funnel, like awareness, consideration, and sales. And then you have the customers on the other side. And the way a brand communicates with the customers, it's usually through some kind of content. For us, at our scale, we also did find that we had more clarity around the brand, we wanted to scale the process of content creation for the usage of all the other marketing teams. So basically, it's just that, creating content, I think.
Gotcha. Okay. So I know you guys have quite a few creators now from humble beginnings, but how many people are now in your kind of general creator ecosystem?
I think that in the platform we are having around 6,000 people.
Mm-hmm.
It's like it starts to become like a community more
Very
than
impressive.
Just a tool.
Got you. And how many of those are kind of actively publishing something for you, maybe on a monthly basis, or creating something for AdoreMe on a regular interval?
It's a function of how many opportunities we released there. We had a maximum of almost 2,000 people posting in a month.
Okay.
And that's usually when we have, Valentine's Day or Christmas. And I think in lower peaks, it's around 500.
That's a ton, actually. That's a lot. I mean, 500 being your lowest end of the spectrum is pretty massive. And how would you describe like the size of these folks? Are they mostly really giant celebrities, tiny little nano influencers, as folks call them?
Yeah, it's like micro influencer mostly, and that's how we started. We started with this idea of getting more authentic type of content,
Mm-hmm.
and we saw that working with bigger macro type of influencers, you get quality content, but you don't get that level of authenticity and engagement. And we said, okay, maybe we should try with micro influencers, but trying with micro influencer and also wanted to get a little bit of broader audience. The problem was the scale of it, of course.
So now the breakdown is obviously probably the top few percent are in the millions of creators, but everybody else is a little smaller.
Yeah, the average number of followers, someone on creators, it's around 29,000.
29,000 followers times 6,000 creators in a pool. That's like quite a lot of reach that you can call on demand.
Yeah, but not all of them are active in a sense. And
Of
then,
course.
of course, you'd have like fake followers and bots. And I guess you know better than me these things.
When you say that maybe on a slow month 500 people publish, are they kind of going to Instagram and throwing up a selfie? Do you folks have like some creative guidelines usually or something? How does the kind of
Yeah,
rollout of an activation look like?
what I think it's interesting is that the way these kind of activations happen, it evolved over the time. We started with the idea of having letting the influencers express themselves as they would feel fit, and they would feel fit with their community and with their followers, because that's what authenticity is in the first place. And we wanted to create a place where they could have this kind of freedom. So at the beginning, we were less involved in having very specific guidelines. Of course, we had this idea of having a campaign and having a thematic, a story behind it.
Mm-hmm.
And we weren't that focused on very specifics, on the specifics of the content, because we aimed, our goal was mostly having awareness on social media and to scale as much as possible. And fast forwarding from that, right now what's happening, we're focusing a bit more on the qualitative aspect of the content, because we want to control a little bit more the usage where we want to use this content, and to be on brand, specific on brand, as we also had more clarity on the brand aesthetics and what we want to transmit to our customers. But the idea is the same, also to be partner with people who already are a good fit for us, and let them be themselves. So it is not that much of a control happening there.
What role does software and technology play in how you've started and scaled out this pool of creators and how the partnerships actually function?
I think it all started with the culture we're having here at AdoreMe. It's a technology company. It's a digital first retail company. It's an e-commerce, and basically most of the processes and the operational side that it's happening here at AdoreMe, it's powered by technology. And that's also how it started to think about influencers in the first place. We started from the fact that we've been using some marketplaces in trying to get influencer collaborations, but when trying to scale that effort, we found out that it's very hard to actually do it through these marketplaces. I think they're good for maybe smaller type of companies, but if you want to create firstly a bigger community and some long-term relationships, I think that's going to be very hard to do it through these platforms. We started to do it like very scrappy and just trying to see what works and what doesn't work, because we didn't have too much experience in this space. And we just did like a design thinking workshops, started to discuss with influencers to understand their motivations, their needs, what would make them want to be part of this kind of community and work with us on the longer term. Then we just things started to grow step by step, and we had like a first MVP, which were just a simple, very simple chatbot. Actually, it was a chatbot on Messenger. People are already using Messenger, and they are already there. Why not having a chatbot where they can see our campaigns, what we have, the opportunities we're having available for them, and they would just apply there and provide them the details of that campaign.
Was that your first instinct? The moment when you started building, I think you were at something, you said 50, 60 creators a month. Was your immediate thought, let's build something to help scale this? I asked the question because I think it's a bit odd. Most companies are like, let me find a tool to drop $30,000 on that might solve half of my problem. And people are really comfortable to buy software.
I mean, of course, at the beginning, we need to understand a little bit the space and understand what's happening, what's available, what our other companies are doing. Especially, we didn't have any kind of experience into this field. And looking at the space and understanding what's available, and then connecting with our needs and vision about in the project brief we started, it was very clear we want to have like 2,000 collaborations a month. Then connecting what's available with our goal, we said, okay, but this is impossible to find something already there. We need to build it in house.
How did you choose the goal 2000? Did you just set like, oh, what's super difficult? Let's do
It just seemed
that.
impossible.
Okay. Okay. You mentioned that you had built a landing page, I think, for people to apply, but the beginning was the chatbot then. So in
Yeah,
Messenger, I'm an influencer. I get a ping from AdoreMe that says, hey, it's Valentine's Day. We have
yeah.
3 campaigns available. How does it kind of look from the influencer's perspective at that moment?
We had this just a landing page, and when they would ask them to sign up, they would just send them to their messenger, to the messenger chatbot, where they would have to give us some details and to enroll into the in the system. The way we started to do it, it was just starting with the people who were already contacting us on our Instagram page, wanting to collaborate with us, and we had this automated reply which would filter for the text like collaborations, collabs, influencer, and would automatically respond with a link to this page. Then it was also interesting because having the chatbot and having everything happening in the chatbot, for us, for me, it was very easy to actually discuss with the influencer directly there in the Facebook admin chat admin. So it was interesting to get feedback in real time and to see what the influencers have to say about our process.
We typically have folks just build a little landing page and send them the link to that and maybe apply through a Google form. But you were already one step ahead and went straight to the chatbot, which makes a lot of sense because it's native to where the user is. They happen to be on mobile when they're talking about this anyway. Probably in the beginning of the process, how did you actually think about allocating technical resources? Because most companies, in a space like yours that are very B2C, they don't have a lot of spare engineering resources laying around. So how did you think about allocating resources and making that decision?
In the beginning, I don't think it was about allocating technical resources. I think it was just an experiment to see if this is doable. How can we actually build this without having the engineering part of it at the beginning, having like a platform, a backend, and what seemed obvious at that moment is to leverage the messenger chat as an interface and a backbone of the whole conversational aspect of this influencer and brands. As this started to scale and this started to have more traction, we realized that we have some limits of that, but also we have some opportunities. It allows us to create content that it's cheaper than other ways of creating that content. We said, okay, let's add some engineering resources into this and to make it more robust and more scalable, and to address the frictions that we saw that we're having while trying to do it via Messenger.
That workshop that you did, who attended that workshop, for example, and how was it structured in a way to actually have some productive output of we could actually get something done and create some value?
Yeah, and I think this was actually interesting because the way we structured it was a colleague of mine she's very passionate about design thinking methodology, and we started to invite people from the company, especially from the tech area of the company, who just wanted to be part of this experiment. We had someone that was working already in the influencer team. We had some engineers leads. We had also someone who was like a designer.
It didn't have to be like a really painful thing. I bet people were actually grateful to have something a little
No, it
different
was
than a
super
little workshop.
fun and
Yeah.
engaging and creative process.
And what did you try to drill into there? What was the mission kind of that initial little meeting hackathon?
I think there were two things. One, to understand our users, and I think there were two kind of users. It was the influencers, and then it was ourselves as a company and our needs, and why we're doing this. I think there were questions around this space.
The problem then that came out of that meeting, I guess, was we need a way to better process inbound. That was kind of the conclusion after the workshop.
Outcome on the entire process, uh, it was that we had like a persona, like a pretty well defined persona about the who is the user, the influencers, who is she, what is her background, what does she do for a living, why she's doing collaborations with brands, what she's looking for, what kind of relationship she's aiming to have with these brands. So we had a pretty clear understanding of our users, so we could better position ourselves in our offering and to see if what we could offer for the influencer that would be appealing to them to be part of this community.
You brought the idea of what can we do for this person into the conversation about the partnerships, actually, which is actually pretty unique. A lot of folks are sending 10,000 cold emails and saying, post an image and send you 25 euros and a toothbrush, and that's the end of the conversation. It's refreshing even to hear that from day one. Was that an intentional decision or just part of who you folks are at AdoreMe? Why do you think you ended up taking that approach over the more traditional transactional thing?
Yeah, I think I think they're both things. I think it's also part of who we are, and we're thinking a little bit what can we do to change a little bit things around. But it's also the part of thinking about sustainability, a sustainable process that we're building here. So if you want to do something at that scale, you need to think about a way of doing sustainable and not doing shortcuts around it, right? Because then it's going to be a little bit harder to provide value and to create the community that you're aiming for. And sustainability part was very important for us from the beginning, because the goal was quite hard and impossible at the beginning. So we needed to find ways of, hey, but what would make people be engaged with us for that long?
How are those two things related? Like empathy for the creator in the end and sustainability. What's the tie together between those two things in your mind?
Something that came out from the interviews with them, and they were looking for having longer term relationship with the brands. That was something that was also useful for us because and that actually happened to have a longer term relationship with someone. And then at some point that influencer would just blow up, scale, and became like a larger influencer. And for us it was super good because having already the relationship with that person and being part of her growth, the impact it had on us, it was good. It was good for her, good for us. So I think having something that started with what they told us that they need was part of it.
You started with empathy, you get the insight people want long-term relationships, and then if you had have gone down the other path of just transactional one-off relationships, you can really see where the opportunity is lost, because one, you have creators who grow over time and whose audience outpaces your ability to saturate all of them, and so that's really valuable. Especially you have an existing relationship, the creator grows, the acquisition cost per creator probably shrinks over time because thank you for being here forever, I won't charge you $1 million a post or whatever. So the cost over time goes down, but also the compounding. Like now you have this community, and I know you said they're not all active, but you have 6,000 people to call on who otherwise, if you had have just had one transaction with each of those 6,000, we'd be having a very different conversation today about how to send the next like 2,000 cold emails and convert the next influencers. But now you've got the system in place, and it all started from that idea that came out of an empathy workshop, like design thinking workshop.
Yeah,
Really powerful lesson.
and I think having this, what happened that was not predictable at that moment, this system transformed in kind of an ecosystem, basically, which unlocked many other opportunities that we didn't realize that would happen at that moment. And right now in our company meeting, we are having actually people from the platform, creators, that's how we call them, that are coming to our company meeting and are just are speakers there. We have
Mm.
people from there who appeared in our ads on TV. We believe that this is a good strategy for authenticity and a better way to actually express what AdoreMe is as a brand.
I'm going to send this episode to half of the customers that I speak with, because oftentimes I kind of tell them this story about how if they build long-term relationships, they'll compound over time, and they'll have their influencers on billboards and in their television. And it's going to have all this leverage. And sometimes they kind of look at me funny, like, what are you talking about? And you see, this is one-to-one correlation, by the way. If you listen to my advice, which Andre didn't, he figured all of this out on his own, and AdoreMe, well, the AdoreMe team did. But if you listen to my advice, then you sell your company for 400 million. That's what happens.
Yeah, but I don't think it was also for us. It was quite difficult because at the beginning we were also looking at the monetary aspect of it and the return of investment. It was very hard, and I guess how it's very hard for everybody to actually make sense of this. But then what struck me is having this understanding of seeing the content in the middle of everything,
Mm.
and being having the connections is just a means to have better content, and the way that we choose to amplify this content on the right channel, having in mind the funnel, like the awareness, consideration, and sales, and what kind of content you need for each part of the funnel and what's best channel for this part of the funnel. I think it's something that was clear for us. We don't
Mm.
have yet a solution for that. I don't know exactly what would be the best match for that, but this is something that I think it's more important. And for example, uh, ad spend. We are using a lot of our content in ad spend as a channel to convert, right?
Mm.
But then we would have a lot of content that is used in our own social media channels, TikTok and Instagram, which is a way of, having a consideration part of the funnel. And then of course you would have the brand awareness part, which is having creators of their own speaking about us on their own channels, especially Instagram and TikTok.
So you leverage the creator relationships actually to produce the organic content that you publish on your own channels, which makes a ton of sense, or that you use in paid. Yeah.
Yeah, I see a world where this content it could be leveraged on our own platforms like the website or the mobile app, and having a place where it could drive product discoverability in a much 2023 type of era than in a 2000 era, where you have like categories and filters, which is very hard to actually find the right product for you.
One thing that seems to come up more and more as a theme is like having creators as part of the organizational DNA. It always starts as this little acquisition channel. You build up the first couple dozen creators, and that's painful, and you suffer through that, maybe getting the acquisition costs correct and building the relationships and so on. But once it gets going, it seems to be a trend that people start to see all this other opportunity in how creators and the content and the production aspect of everything becomes like core to the business. Coming back around to technology, then how has it evolved since the days of the chatbot and the inbound processing? Like, was there one or two highlight big wins that you've had that you feel like were really driven by technology?
What happened after the chatbot, we started to build like a real platform, because we saw that the briefs that we were putting there were, you were limited, right? On the chatbot, you cannot add some more images or content in a structured way, and then you couldn't actually track the whole process of what's happening. Then we started to go a little bit deeper and thought about, but if we want to scale this, we need to find ways of actually track what's happening, track the posts, and to monitor those posts, and then close the campaigns in a way that it's more automatic than having an army of people managing not all these numbers of collaborations. So that was the next phase of it, to automatize and get more insights. And the way we did that was when somebody would actually be part of a collaboration of a campaign, and post something on social media, we would automatically detect their posts, would ingest the post in our platform, and then also for them would be visible what's the next step. Okay, now we detected your post. The next step is to upload your content on our platform, because this platform is
Mm.
also a content
Aggregation.
aggregator, yes,
Mm.
of the entire platform. Which after having this content in the platform, we send this content in our digital asset management tool, which is then accessible for the entire company and all the other parts of the company. I think that was the next phase of it, having this automated process where our people managing the platform from an operation standpoint would just be focused on the the influencer needs. We have a chat in the box where you could actually discuss with the influencer. The influencer could ask us, "Hey, I have some issues. I don't understand the brief. Maybe could you clarify things like that?" And they will get help right away. And all the things that would be repeatedly and manual, we said, okay, let's automatize those. And that's how we actually get like two people to manage like almost 2,000 collaborations a month.
Yeah, and that brings me to team structure actually. So how is the team set up from technical side and everybody else? Is there, do you have a massive team of developers working on this every day, or?
We started like we had just one person. It was like a freelancer. And then we started to think like, okay, but this is interesting. Let's also create a little team. So we had some junior people working on this, and now there are like three people in engineering. The scope it evolved to also some other marketing processes that we want to automatize, not just this part of scaling collaboration, but we identify some other aspects that we could automatize. So the team is also focusing on that.
And for the influencer, the journey through that product, then I guess, is that they, somehow a relationship is struck up with AdoreMe, and they end up logging in maybe, so they're verified somehow.
So basically, yeah, we have these creators.adorme.com, the page. You
Hmm.
would fill a form, and then after that form, we would have a vetting process where the team is looking to see if it's a good fit with the community or not. And after you get approved, you get an onboarding email where after you log in and set up your passwords, then you'll have access to the campaigns that we have available there. And there are all kinds of campaigns, like it's based Instagram, TikTok, YouTube campaigns for all the channels. Then after you enter in a campaign, and depends on the how it's that campaign set up. You would be needed again. Maybe if it's Instagram, you need to log in with your Instagram account to verify your identity. If it's a paid campaign, again, we need your PayPal account so we process your payment. If it's the way we are doing the product accessibility, it's we're providing for you a gift card code automatically. You would use that gift card code on the website to place the order and get the products. And everything is step by step. And that is very clear for you there in the interface. The next step is you have the products delivered. We track that order, and we know that you have the products delivered. At some point we had this proactive type of communication after X days of not having the content. We would ask, hey, was something wrong? Do you need some help from
Hmm.
us to and that also was automatized, not having someone to track all the details. You would post your content on social media if that's part of the campaign requirements. If not, just upload the piece of content on the platform, and voila, the campaign would be closed.
And for your team, the beauty of all of this is that basically they have to maybe check a piece of data and click a button for most of these problems, it sounds like.
Yeah, and those decisions are actually embedded in the tool, because they don't have to take decisions. The tool is making those decisions for them. They will just have to input the information for the tool, so the tool knows what kind of decision it should do. Like, okay, if the content, for example, a small example, if the content is accepted and it was saved into our digital asset management tool, that means the content was great. So the tool knows that okay, we can issue the payment for this person, and the tool automatically issues the payment for the creator. Philosophy we're having when doing product management is that to minimize as much as possible the inputs required for the user, and to maximize as much as possible the decision making in the tool, because people are very subjective. They come and go. An example of this is like collaborations, right?
Mm.
When someone would work on this for a long time, that person would know, oh, but this person I already have information for because I worked in the past, and I trust her, creates good content, things like that. And then I want to work with her again. And we try to make sure that this kind of information it's actually embedded in the platform, so anybody would have access and know in the future that we should prioritize persons, creators that are reliable and they provide qualitative content constantly.
The number of manual steps in this process is really what people tend to struggle with in the early days of creator partnerships generally. But unfortunately, most folks in marketing generally, especially if they don't have an engineering team or a product team close to them, it's just so scary to think about, who do I have to talk to? How do I even get started with automating these steps, deciding what's the most important, and so on. I feel like the advice that maybe I would draw from what you've said so far in this show, and you can tell me if I get one of these wrong, but one of them is like, start small. You don't have to have a full engineering team and building like a giant thing as you
You
have.
don't
I
need
mean, it's
an engineer at all to start. And to I think what is important to have this mindset of automatization and not hate actually repeated work. That's something I really hate. And I'm always thinking, okay, I'm doing this thing now. Am I going to do it again in the future? If that the answer is yes, then I'm not going to work on that task. I'm going to work at the way of making sure that I'm creating like a system that to make sure that I'm not going to do that again in the future.
you said you don't need engineering in the beginning. I feel as though nowadays it's you can probably get really far depending on how enthusiastic you are about solving these problems. You can get really far with Airtable, Zapier, and
Yeah, exactly.
little, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it also goes, and that would be, of course, a very good way to create like MVPs or prototypes to make to invest, to invest like little resources and to have some traction, and to understand if this is something that worth of investing more, and to understand a little bit the benefits, and that's based on the level of hypotheses, of assumptions that someone would have, and the level of opportunity that someone would have, and those goes again like step by step, trying to understand if there is a large unknown. I think it's also about something that I realized. There are two type of mindset is like of goal setting, like, hey, I have a very specific goal that I want to get, but you want to make it as fast as possible, as scrappy as possible, maybe. But what about creating a system that is sustainable and that will allow you to unlock so much other opportunities while reaching your goal? And I think having system thinking type of approach to goal setting, it's very valuable.
One way to think about that is with the story of this workshop on empathy, that when you're starting out, get multiple people involved, get different perspectives on problems, and keep the stakeholders that matter in the core, the center of the problem. And I think in your case, this was creators became like a very important point, obviously.
Yeah, but also if we wanted to say, hey, the goal is to have 2,000 influencers per month, and we want that, but and that's our, let's make it sure that we have that as soon as possible. Maybe our solution would be different than having a tool that it's sustainable in producing that goal consistent month by after month with minimum effort, because
Yeah.
it could be very easily to go to maybe an agency and say, hey, we need that, reach goal checked, but then you would have no system, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And you end up when you optimize too heavily around the goal, like you said, then you end up just okay. We need to recruit 2,000 people. We think we can get 20% responses on emails, so we're going to send 10,000 emails a month. Like you can oversimplify things if you don't keep that like sustainable systems thinking part in mind. I think empathy helps to overcome that because nobody wants to receive a cold email like over and over again with no real genuine outcome. So maybe empathy is a good proxy for decent systems. Any other core learnings you want to leave folks with, or do you feel that we've told the story of technical implementation around creator partnerships at AdoreMe to the degree where other folks can copy you?
Mm, I think what I learned recently is that everything is changing. I mean, learners, I think that's something that it's always happening. But now, in relation to what we've done, is like everything is changing from year to year, or even faster, especially in this area, I believe. So now we are thinking that maybe the way we build and thought about this product is maybe too rigid,
Mm.
and maybe at this moment, maybe it's actually a friction
Mm.
than an accelerator. So now we're thinking, but how could we actually embed uncertainty and this change into the system to make it even more valuable?
Can you describe in a couple sentences what kind of changes are creating friction, maybe, or what you're kind
And
of.
here I'm thinking about the marketing strategies that, I think each time someone, and I think especially us in our company, we're trying to experiment as much as possible to find new ways of, innovating a few things. And that's not only the technology aspect, but it's also marketing or
Mm.
supply chain or production. We have this mindset of, innovating things. And now I'm thinking, but what if things there are other opportunities out there for the marketing team, and because we are tied to the way we're doing things, maybe we're not seeing those things,
Mm.
and what can we do to actually make it very easy for the marketing team to experiment and try new things in this space, but not be tied to our ways of doing things. You have a classical phone, and then someone comes with an iPhone, and then it disrupts the entire market. And for me, here would be how can we make sure that the way we're doing things, the old is not becoming that old phone, and
Yeah.
actually new things coming up, and we need to make sure that we keep an eye open on experimenting and not considering that what we're doing right now it's going to live forever.
Yeah, and even if it does live forever, there might be like adjacent opportunities that, with a little bit of exploration or room to play, you can find like disproportionate upside. I think it's a really good point. If I can cheer you on here a little bit, I think that most of the folks that I see become laggards in this space or in any kind of technology or good product building, really, they're people who don't understand what you just described. They don't even know that that's a problem usually. And so I think that, or until it's too late at least, and the iPhone's already in front of you. I know you said you haven't solved the problem yet, but do you have any core theses on how to on what might be important? For example, I think hiring is probably super important in this point.
Hiring from what
Like
perspective?
you have to the people in the team have to be kind of naturally inclined to explore these kind of this opportunity
Ah,
space.
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah, of course. And then also for me, it's an aspect of the product itself. First, how can we actually understand the process better, the entire process? And then how can we decouple parts of the process that can be rearranged in a ways that would make sense if new ideas come up along? For example, if I go back to our tool, it's how can we decouple maybe the community part, and the part of onboarding people, to the part of actually have the collaborations. So maybe collaboration could mean different ways, not only this type of companies, maybe could be different ways of doing collaborations. And then what would be standard in any type of collaboration? Maybe tracking information or getting the content, maybe that would be standard no matter how things would change. Maybe paying creators would be standard no matter what would change. So what's at the infrastructure level and what's content on top of that infrastructure, right?
There's so many ways to approach the space and so much opportunity to explore. Kind of, I guess, as long as you have the freedom to play in the open field, then you'll definitely embrace the change that does come. Andrei, anything else?
No, not much, I think. It's,
Awesome. Thanks so much again, man. And yeah, we can call it a show from there. I think we can cut it there. We'll cut it right with Andrei saying not too much.